Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. Sitting here with Spike doing our Zoom meetings as we are now growing accustomed to. Spike, we are hours away from the NFL draft, and we are hours away from an unprecedented NFL draft. Are you any more or less excited about this draft compared to others?
I think – I hate to sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but I guess being a 40-year-old Gen Xer, I can't really avoid it at this point. I think that this takes something away from the draft, having it all online. I think having the big stadium, like they did last year in what was it, Nashville, Memphis, whatever it was.
Nashville, yeah.
Being able to be there, have the experience, have the young player walk up, greet Roger Goodell, or greet somebody from the team, hold the jersey, stand there for the photo op, get interviewed. Like the production of it, the pomp and circumstance of it, I think was kind of what made the draft special. If we're just doing this feels almost like watching somebody else's fantasy football draft in a way. Like this is
That's
not
fair, yeah.
This is not something like it doesn't have the grandstand, it doesn't have the fireworks and everything else going along with it. It's just like it's a bunch of guys in the basement filling out their rosters. I don't know how interesting that is to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It does feel a little like a fantasy draft. I mean, Roger Goodell's our league commissioner, and the 32 guys are just sitting there going, is this thing on? Is this thing? Yeah.
I had hoped, and I didn't see it on William Hill, maybe it was on another book, but I had hoped to find a prop bet for over-under on the number of technical difficulties or mics being muted accidentally that was going to happen.
I got to imagine that's hard to handicap because what do you classify as a technical difficulty? I mean, if they're trying to Zoom meeting with the 32 commissioners and all of a sudden, like, say I'm Jason Light of the Bucks and I'm like, does that count? Or if my screen goes black, does that count? I mean, if my screen goes blue, does that count? I mean, I think that's so hard to handicap. I mean,
yeah.
What if I'm a GM and I leave the door open and all of a sudden like there's a naked woman walking by in the shower? Is that a technical difficulty?
Or the kid comes in, Daddy, look at the dollies.
Or the dog comes in and just knocks the bookcase over. I mean, you could literally, argue that all of that is technical. I mean, we the Detroit Lions take, the bookcase falls over. And
it would be a metaphor for their season.
Yeah, I mean, before it even starts.
Exactly.
So
where's Token? He would have appreciated that joke, damn it.
Yeah, well, maybe he'll come out of hiding someday.
Maybe.
All right, so like I said, draft is hours away. You and I are Pats fans.
Yep.
Who do you want if they stay at number 23?
If they stay at 23, I think I go offensive line. I know the class is deep, so they'll be able to get some talent at number 23. They can trade Joe Tooney and get some cap relief, which will help them further on down the road. And I think that that's a spot where once one of the starters went down and he was, the center, who I can never remember, somebody else moved over and blah, blah, blah. When Newhouse was in there, Newhouse is not the answer long-term as a solution on that offensive line. So they need depth. They need somebody else on there. And I think that would be the way that they go, assuming they stay at number 23.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth with this. Initial thoughts, you really, after the end of an era, want to see them draft a quarterback. But if we have Tua, Herbert, and Joe Burrow gone, I don't like anybody else with a first-round grade at this spot. I'm going edge rush. that's probably. I mean, there's a couple of guys with first round grades that I would look at, but it's hard to say. If I had to take a pick based on want, I'm really hoping that a guy like Jerry Jeudy, with the new injury history that's becoming to light, guy like that maybe falls down in the draft like Randy Moss did. I would love a guy that they can complement with hopefully the development of N'Keal Harry and Julian Edelman if he does stick around. I saw a meme today on Facebook that it was the classic SpongeBob meme where Squidward's looking out the little porthole at Patrick and SpongeBob, like going, ah, however, whatever they do. And the Patrick and SpongeBob had Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski on it, and Julian Edelman was the one looking in the porthole like he was missing out.
Yes. Yeah. Although my dad brought up that same point, excuse me, last night, saying that, New England should trade Edelman and get something for him, trade him to Tampa Bay and let him go. But I'm thinking, hey, I have no idea what Tampa Bay's cap space looks like, but I can't imagine that they can handle picking.
Could you imagine Evans, Godwin, and Edelman, and Gronkowski, and OJ Howard, and maybe a running back if they draft one?
That was the other point, is they don't need him. Like, he would be nice to have, but Edelman is a number 3. Can you even imagine that? Actually, a number 4 behind Gronk.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that here in a second because that's one of the talking points on our docket here. But yeah, I mean, it's an abundance of riches. I mean, you're not going to tell Tom Brady, hey, if Tom Brady says, hey, we can get Julian Edelman right here, right now for this, and you're like, it'll be number 4 option. He'll be like, I don't care. I want all the options.
Sorry, I forgot I was muted for a second there. Yeah, no, I mean, if he wants the embarrassment of riches, then more power to him, and he can do that. And then, what
do you think they get for an Edelman? 3rd, 4th? They're not getting a first. I know that.
No, definitely not a first, but I mean, I can't. A 3rd seems too little, especially when somebody like, Garoppolo went for a 2nd, and he only had a handful of starts under his belt.
Right, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who's been in the league 10 years, has an ACL surgery.
Yeah.
I say maybe a 3rd and a 7th or a 3rd and a 6th.
I was going to say a 3rd and probably something else the following year. And if it's deferred another year, they can probably get either another 3rd or maybe a 4th out of it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking based solely on going back to the draft here, based solely on need for the New England Patriots, I've got to look edge rusher or quarterback. I don't love anybody with the 23rd pick at quarterback. I don't love Jordan Love, no pun intended. If that guy from LSU, I can't pronounce his name. His last name is Chason, which is ironic for a defensive end, chasing quarterbacks. But I know it's so bad. But
you're lucky my mic was muted just for that split second, because otherwise you would have heard my head thump directly into it.
If I had to say sit tight, no needs, best available player, I would want Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson, or I would want one of the running backs in Jonathan Taylor or DeAndre Swift. So I know that the backfield would be crowded with Sony Michel, but
yes,
again, if I had to stand pat as a fan, best player available, I want a wide receiver. I want a skill position player right now. I'd love a tight end, but I don't think there's one in the first round. That guy, Chase Claypool, who could move to tight end, he was a wide receiver at Notre Dame. Guy's like 6'5". And then Cole Kmet, who was the tight end at Notre Dame, also is a big dude as well. But they're not first round graded, but that's my thought, especially with the draft coming up. I got to prepare because I know that I'm going to be doing 4 or 5 hours of second and third round coverage here. So I've got to start getting in depth on all these guys. I've been doing a lot.
You're really going to start getting into the nitty gritty of some of these players.
I've been doing Mel Kiper style research over the last 24, 36 hours.
Hey, well, you got nothing else better to do, so you may.
That is true. I go in the pool and that's about it.
Yeah. The only knock I have against taking a skill position player is that, it would be nice to get somebody that can develop a rapport with the quarterback and kind of grow with them over the next few seasons. But I think right now, if Belichick is in win now mode, which I think he is, even though I'm advocating for the complete opposite, I want 0-16, I want tank for Trevor. If he is in win now mode, I think he has to rely on veterans and calming presences and the kinds of guys to keep around a young quarterback to help him out of jams. And
Right. Wouldn't skill position players really fit that niche?
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Especially if Trevor's coming next year, you want, a running back or a wide receiver with a season under his belt. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm saying like guys with multiple seasons, which is why I wouldn't want to advocate for trading Edelman, which is why if they're looking for somebody like a wide receiver or somebody like that, you take somebody off the scrap heap that's maybe been on a few teams for a couple of years, maybe in and out of practice squads, somebody that's kind of borderline, but that has potential that can grow with a young quarterback as opposed to, somebody that's just brand new, fresh in the league, doesn't know what they're doing, and is going to be a problem potentially for a quarterback if he's immature and doesn't know how to behave himself. And I'm scratching my knee. Don't get any ideas of this arm motion.
Hey, I'll let the viewers make their own decisions. If you had the availability right now, I know we're going to get into some other stuff here in the podcast, but if you had the availability and you're Bill Belichick, which do they even have a general manager? I know they do for appearances, but he's all effectively the general manager.
Yeah, Belichick runs basically everything. I mean, he is going to have the final say on no matter what happens.
Would you mortgage the farm? I mean, take out your preconceived notions of going 0-16 for just a second. Would you sell the farm for Joe Burrow this year or intentionally tank for Trevor Lawrence?
It's such a tough call because I think both of these guys have potential, but I think what I've seen out of Trevor Lawrence, which admittedly isn't much, but what I've seen personally and what I've read and everything else says that Lawrence is not only the better prospect long-term, but he is more like a Tom Brady with legs as opposed to Burrow, which maybe isn't the prototypical Brady, which they've already built an offense around. So therefore, they wouldn't have to completely retool the offense, but it would look different under a different quarterback like that. I think with Trevor Lawrence, you don't have to make those kinds of adjustments that you would have to make if you brought in a Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow's getting a lot of comparisons to an Andrew Luck type as well, so I don't want to rule out his running ability too. I just look at, packaging the 23, the 1 next year, and insert, a few draft picks here for Joe Burrow, which Cincinnati probably wouldn't trade. They would need something exorbitant.
Oh, yeah.
But, look at the Dolphins. Did they try to tank? They were tanking for Tua, then they were, then they won a couple games. Like, sometimes tanking's actually hard to do.
I think.
So who's to say they're going to get Trevor next year if they tank in properly? I mean, everybody can't go 0-16 or 1-15.
Well, and look at it this way: if you tell the team we're going to tank so we can draft Trevor Lawrence, and all of a sudden Stidham goes, "I need to win games so I can keep my job."
Correct.
So all of a sudden the quarterback potentially starts playing much better than you expected, which is a problem if you're trying to tank.
I think if you're trying to tank, Hightower's got to go, Gilmore's got to go, but then you can't clean the whole closet out.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem is that
I don't know if Bill Belichick has – look, this is a gambling show when gambling is available, and I've always said if you're a bad sports bettor, fade yourself, and you've done it before.
Yeah. But
it took a lot of swallowing your pride to do that, correct? Could you imagine Bill Belichick basically gambling against himself? Like, I just don't see it.
Well, and that's the thing. For me, when I decided to gamble against myself, it wasn't like I don't have $1.5 billion franchise on my shoulders. I had $5 worth of action, or like a $10 parlay. Like,
right.
Betting against myself wasn't the financial burden's not the right word, but not the financial commitment that it would be for a Belichick to tank a team like that and potentially cost millions of dollars to the ownership and to the fans and et cetera and so on. If I'm betting against myself, the only person I'm betting against is myself. I don't, if I disappoint myself, well, that happens every day. So,
yeah, and how do you get Robert Kraft on board? That's the first guy.
Yeah, and not only Robert, but Jonathan Kraft. I can't imagine that he
the ownership.
Like that entire group would just say, hell no. Hell to the no.
Yeah, because
is a phrase.
Again, the draft is one of the biggest lotteries, short of the lottery, But, I mean, who knows? Trevor Lawrence may end up flaming out. We don't know. It's hard to envision that, but I mean, look at Ryan Leaf. He was almost a can't miss prospect 20 years ago as well. And
Jamarcus Russell was a can't miss prospect. Sam Bradford was a can't miss prospect. Like, a lot of these guys have been can't miss prospects, and they've missed, and some of them have missed big time.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to see. I mean, obviously, Belichick liked something in Stidham last year to draft him.
Yep, and keep him around, and traded Hoyer, or let Hoyer go, whatever the problem was, to keep Stidham, and because Belichick doesn't keep three quarterbacks on the roster, it's just not something he enjoys doing. It's not something.
And he's got Edelman.
Yeah, and he has Edelman, true, but he does it in very rare occasions. Like, he had it for a little while with Brady, Garoppolo, and Brissett. He had it for a while with Bledsoe, Bishop, and Brady, and it's just not something that he likes to have on his roster because he wants to utilize these other positions for special teamers, fullbacks, and these guys that don't necessarily make rosters on other teams.
Right.
But
All right.
We'll see.
So put a percentage chance on the Patriots drafting a quarterback in this draft.
In this draft, 100%.
In the first two rounds.
First two rounds. I still think that Jake Fromm is exactly the type of player that the Patriots would go for. They trade out of the first round to get more assets, and then they do a little bit of a reach to take Fromm in like the probably early to early mid to second round, and then they get like an extra third or an extra fourth out of it, whatever the case may be. And if that's the case, I absolutely see them doing that. So I would put that at probably like 85%, unless something bizarre happens.
It's true. Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, let's stick with the Patriots talk. Rob Gronkowski is no longer a Patriot. He might not be. He might not be anybody if he decides not to play. But he has officially, his contract has been traded to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers along with a 7th-round pick in exchange for a 4th-round pick from Tampa to New England. I got to imagine Tampa only makes this deal because they were in talks with Rob Gronkowski.
So what I read yesterday, and I wish I could credit the person who made the report, but it slips my mind right now, and I don't want to bang on my super loud mechanical keyboard while I have my microphone on. But the report that I read was when Brady was in free agency, he told teams that if you sign me, I want you to trade for Rob Gronkowski. So Tampa Bay knew that this was going to be a something that they would have to deal with at some point if they traded for Brady, which didn't slow them down. They traded for Brady, or they signed Brady, and did what they had to do to get Gronkowski because I think they wanted to keep Brady happy after spending $30 million on him. So it seems like the type of play where, if that's what Brady wanted, Brady gets what he wants. And for a team like Tampa to get Gronkowski and have, O.J. Howard, that's a brutal tight end combination. I can't think of any other team that has
Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate's arguably the better tight end between him and Howard.
Yeah, I mean,
Jameis loved Brate.
Brate was better at, or when he was coming up, he was known for his blocking, right? And he kind of developed the catch with Jameis. Yeah, I think Howard was kind of the opposite. But it'll be interesting.
Ball.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how these guys develop with Brady and see what kind of rapport they get, especially if they even get a touch with Gronkowski out there. Now, for me, as
27 touchdowns for a tight end in 5 years in this league is pretty good. I mean, if you're not named Kelsey Gronk or Zach Ertz.
That's true. But for me as a Patriots fan, I saw this trade and I was immediately like, how the hell do they trade Gronk and another pick and only get a 4th out of it? And then I started to think, well, if Gronk wants to come out of retirement, the Patriots can't stop him. They have $1.1 million available in salary cap room, and Gronk's contract hit is like 10 or 11 million.
10, yeah.
So they needed to trade him. If Gronk is coming out of retirement, they needed to trade him. Then I realized they just traded a guy that's retired that hasn't played in a year, that clearly hasn't been keeping up with the physical regimen of playing in the NFL.
And doesn't intend to play for you.
And when he was playing in the NFL, he kept getting hurt, and they got a 4th-round pick for him. At this point, I'm like, that's a goddamn steal for the Patriots, and I think they did a phenomenal job with that trade.
Agreed. I mean, you have to look at it like this, and for all intents and purposes, we all agree Gronkowski's coming back. Obviously, Tampa Bay, there are some bad organizations, but nobody's that dumb. But on the 1% chance he does not come back, New England just traded the 7th-round pick for a 4th-round pick, basically.
That's true.
So, yes, the 7th-round pick, I mean, people are throwing those away like candy wrappers.
Yeah.
So, in their thought, they just traded a throwaway pick and a guy who's not playing for them, who's retired, and who won't play for them ever again, more than likely, for a 4th-round pick. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, kudos to the Patriots. I thought it was a phenomenal move. And, good for Gronk. I mean, good for Tom Brady. They're going for it. I mean, you got to imagine, whether he says it or not in the rest of his life, he wants to win without Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
And they're going to give him every tool necessary.
Yeah.
And I don't, no pun intended on Rob Gronkowski with the tool comment.
And credit to Tampa Bay. I mean, I kind of laughed at them signing Brady because it's like, all right, they've got a good receiving core. They've got Brady, but they don't have an offensive line. They couldn't keep Winston upright. They kept, the reason Winston threw 30 picks is probably because he kept getting put under pressure. And
their defense was bad, and they were down quickly.
Yeah, but now it's like, all right, they're making moves. They're making trades. Gronkowski, Gronkowski, even at 80%, Gronkowski is better than, basically everybody except Kelsey and Ertz and Kittle at this point. I don't know. I got to give credit to Tampa Bay for actually going for it and putting their money where their mouth is, or putting their stock where their mouth is, and telling Brady, we're all in on trying to bring a championship to Tampa Bay.
Did you watch that Twitter video by Brady after the trade was official?
I did not.
So I forget what it's in reference to, but Tom Brady looks like he's at his house, and he grabs the seashell, and the birds fly. And then all of a sudden, out of the trees runs Rob Gronkowski, and he says, "Sorry, I'm late. Gronk reporting for duty." So, I mean, it's obvious that he's coming back.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about – I mean, we've got it's April, season supposed to be potentially starting. So we got 5 months. He's a little out of shape right now, but his body's got to be feeling real good after 13 months off of football.
Well, yeah, but keep in mind he was participating in the WWE, so not that's he's not taking
strenuous activity.
Yeah, he's not taking the hits that he was taking in the NFL, but he's certainly getting thrown around. He's getting bruised. He's getting banged up. So.
He's the champion in WWE, isn't he?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, there was the heavyweight champion and the intercontinental champion, and I believe he's something called the 24/7 champion or some.
Oh, back when I was a kid, that was called the Hardcore Championship.
Ah, okay. But
I remember that because they were so what they did was they would have a match in the ring going on, but the Hardcore Championship, you could lose the belt at any time. Obviously, usually when they were airing, they're not going to lose the belt on a Thursday at 4. But
yeah. And I actually saw this. The WWE put out a press statement that said Gronkowski, as the defending WWE 24/7 champion, must be willing and able to defend his championship at any time. And that includes celebrating in the end zone after a Brady touchdown pass.
That would be phenomenal. There is a 0.00001% of chance of that happening on a Sunday. But I would love to see something where they scripted it to where he was, on the team bus, and then all of a sudden, I don't know the wrestlers today, so I'm just going to use The Rock. All of a sudden, The Rock gets behind him and pins him and takes the title, or whoever's a wrestler nowadays. But I would love to see them kind of coordinate with the NFL and Gronkowski to see an interesting way for him to either lose his title or continuously defend his title, on the bye week or something.
That would be a sight to behold. I mean, it would make great pay-per-view. Can you imagine the Hard Knocks episodes if Gronkowski had to defend his title every time the cameras were on?
Do we have a Hard Knocks for this year?
I have no idea. I don't know what's going on this
Do
year.
we have it this year?
From what I just read, the Raiders Stadium is now 2 months behind schedule.
Oh, yeah. They're talking about playing at Sam Boyd or San Antonio or Qualcomm in San Diego.
God.
I mean,
terrible.
Are they still doing construction on that? Because I know that they had they had COVID cases, and
They did.
That was a big topic of contention during a lot of the shutdowns, was that, you've got actual confirmed COVID cases on the Raider Stadium and you're not shutting that down, but we all know where the money talks.
Yeah.
I know Tampa Bay was recently just on the Hard Knocks in 2017. Don't quote me on that, but it was recently. I wouldn't mind them doing it again. Oakland was last year. I know that.
Yep.
So I know Belichick would never let that in his freaking camp. But
oh no,
could you imagine? I mean, Tom Brady on a Hard Knock, Gronk, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Bruce Arians. He's kind of a little bit of a spark plug, a little too.
That'd be interesting, but yeah, no, Brady would, or Belichick would never allow it. I don't think Brady would ever be comfortable with something like that.
Yeah, so this is the Vegas Squares podcast. We are sponsored by 12 Ounce Sports Radio and Seat Giant. Promo code 12 Ounce for your discounted sporting event, concert, and theater tickets. Yeah, I forgot that at the beginning, so we'll throw it in here periodically. Also, today, as you're probably watching this, we are also doing a contest on our Vegas Squares Twitter. If you go to our tweet, that you'll find it. I won't tweet too much so it doesn't get buried down. You go to our tweet where I am offering a free 12-ounce T-shirt to anyone who can correctly guess the first 10 picks, the player, in today's NFL draft. If you guess them correctly, you follow 12-ounce sports and you follow Vegas Squares, and you are correct, you will win a free T-shirt of your choosing from 12-ounce sports. I will personally pay for that. So, and even 12-ounce sports members, if you're listening to, you are also included, except for the boss.
Huh. All right.
I'll let you pick too. So.
All right. I don't know any of these players, so if I get it, it's just
you should get the first two right.
I would hope so.
Yeah, unless the Bengals bungle the first pick. Anyways, so where are we at? Trading Rob Gronkowski, like you said, overall, I thought it was a great move by Belichick. And I saw the meme with Bill Belichick. I'm sure you've seen the meme where he sips orange juice. Have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This one was, I'm so good I can trade retired players and get draft picks for it. So.
Yeah.
All right. This one, go ahead.
Fantastic. God damn it.
You all right? Did you spill your drink?
It slipped out of my hand a little bit and it spilled, but it's all right. I got a giant, it's a 2 foot by 4 foot, mouse pad basically covering the entirety of the front of my desk. So it's not a problem.
You got to quit drinking red. It stains. Switch to blue.
I got water here too.
Oh, drink that.
Actual water.
So, all right, let's move on to baseball. And this one's an interesting one because actually I didn't really give it the time of day until it actually hits home with us and some of my family members. Because although we don't have baseball season tickets, we do have VGK Golden Knights season tickets.
Yep.
So let me give you the rundown here. 2 baseball fans have filed lawsuits against Commissioner Rob Manfred, the MLB, and all 30 MLB teams, requesting a refund for the unusable tickets for unplayable games in the midst of an economic pandemic. Now, initial thoughts are, hey, the season isn't canceled, GFY. Until it is, they really don't owe you anything. But then I started to read a little bit into what the what do you call them? The plaintiffs have to say. Under the pretext of postponing games, the directive of the MLB, the teams, and the ticket merchandisers, including third-party sellers, they're refusing to issue refunds for games which are not going to be played as scheduled, if ever. So, again, with the situation we have with the Golden Knights, in my package, I don't have any tickets left. Obviously, you do because you have an entire season.
Yep.
we know that if the games are in fact canceled, you will get a refund. I mean, the teams aren't going to do that dirty. But the question is, if you plan to go to a game, like here, this woman, Susan Terry Baser, reportedly paid close to $1,000 to take her family of four to a Red Sox-Yankees game in May when they were due to be there on vacation. Well, obviously, they're probably not going to be on vacation in New York in May, and that game is probably not going to be played. And if it is, there's a chance that the Baser family will not be able to attend. So as it stands now, if that game's moved to June, more than likely the Baser family is not going back to New York then either. And now, if the season isn't canceled, that family is on the hook for $1,000 to try to resell tickets that they've purchased that now they may not get their full value. Now, again, we've all been in the situation where we've not had to go. You've sold your tickets at a loss or face value, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But to be out of town, there's got to be a situation here where I don't know. I don't know how to really look at this situation, because I know I would be pissed if I had planned a trip knowing full well that the game got moved to another time where I can't go on a trip. Now I'm on the hook for these tickets, especially being on the hook for these tickets that I don't know when the game's going to be played. But at the same time, I see the MLB's stance. I mean, you purchase these tickets. No sporting events have been officially canceled. So therefore, we don't necessarily legally owe you a refund. I can see both sides in this. I'm curious to know where you your context is in this spot.
So I will say, and I'll get back to this point in a second, but I will say I am glad this lawsuit exists, because I think it is bringing attention to the fact that these teams are going out of their way right now to say, we don't owe you anything, nothing is happening. Ticketmaster kind of snuck into their terms of service at the bottom there that they were no longer issuing refunds for games that were being postponed. So I think the way that this has been handled by MLB has been kind of botched, and I don't think people realize how bad it was botched. So that's why I'm glad that this lawsuit is bringing it to the attention of the public. Typically in these things where teams are owned by billionaires and families that are, maybe not struggling, but $1,000 means a lot to them. If they're out $1,000, I'm probably going to side with the families, even if it's, even if legally the team has every right to do that. I'm going to tell the billionaires to go fuck themselves and, eat the $1,000, because it means a lot less to them than it does to the family. Incorrect.
But I mean, you look at this from a micro scale, and you're right. To a billionaire, yes, eat the $1,000, but to a stadium full of refunds, that adds up.
It does, but, at the same time, it's something that they can absorb. And again, if they're saying that the game isn't canceled, then cancel this person's ticket and then resell those tickets on the open market, but make the team responsible for selling the tickets. Don't make the person responsible for selling.
And I agree to that. I believe that any manner of selling tickets in this, it's an unprecedented circumstance. I mean, other than a few rainouts and things like that, we haven't had a situation where, hey, this game is rained out. We don't know when it's going to be made up.
Right, and I think the rainouts in baseball make it a little bit unique in that they can say no game is guaranteed because of weather. So they can always say things like that. I think with hockey and with especially the Golden Knights, it's a little bit different. In my season ticket holder contract, there is actually a force majeure clause. It says if games are canceled by, essentially pandemic or some other, kind of act of God reason, the team does not have to refund the money. Now, I think that from a PR perspective, it would be a terrible
They'll never
mistake
do that,
to not refund them. But again, this is why I'm glad this lawsuit exists, because it means that people are paying attention. And if this lawsuit against MLB is getting this much negative press, if the NHL then comes along and says, we're not going to refund people for the last 4 or 5 home games where they had season tickets, then they're going to point to, look at the bad press MLB just got. You are doing the exact same thing, and you are going to get just as much shit as the MLB did.
Now, are we going to assume that these games are never going to get played But at the same time, are we going to assume that these teams, these third-party brokers are going to eat the PR negativity and not refund people? I mean,
no, I every plan that I'm hearing coming from the NHL is saying that, well, I shouldn't say every plan, but most of the plans that I'm hearing are basically saying either the season ends now or they even roll it back to where every team has played 68 games and then take the point total from that and then base a playoff on that. So from what I understand, the plans that have the most support are all saying that the regular season is over. But from what I think will happen, and maybe this is just my naivete, but I believe that if that were the case, then the teams would take the money that was spent on the regular season games and roll it into the playoff packages for those teams that are making it to the playoffs.
For season ticket holders, yes. But what about individual games sell?
For the individual games, then I don't know what they can or should do. I think that's going to be on a team-by-team basis, unfortunately. I don't think the league is going to be able to say we have one policy that fits all because – a lot of
30 independent owners.
Yeah, that all the teams are independent owners.
Stadiums.
The stadiums are owned differently. And a lot of the teams have played different number of games, so they can't even say it's just say match for match. If one team's played 72 games and another team's played 68, then there's going to be a disconnect. So I think there's a lot to consider there, but I think it's going to come down to the teams. I hope that Vegas does the right thing when it's all said and done.
I just hope that MLB is just on this lawsuit because they always say if you're going to sue somebody, go for the deepest pockets. My hope is that the MLB and all the major sports unanimously have a plan in place to either refund money or roll over, as you say. I've heard differences with the Golden Knights of rolling it over into the playoffs, which they would be a part of, or if there is no season, rolling it over into your payment for next season and refunding individual game sales. Now, the issue here is I think this lawsuit really is more to the third-party sites, because if I put my tickets on StubHub and sell them to you, now StubHub has to go get the money back from me that I might have already spent. So are these third-party sites taking a bath? Those are the ones – it's funny that you talk about the billionaires. Those are the billionaires that I tell that can go fuck themselves with all these LET fees and everything. I mean, pay a 25% ticket fee. I think they should eat the cost by the way they charge service fees to both the dealer and the seller – or the buyer and the seller. But I think that's the real person on trial here. Obviously, like we said, if the – Major League Baseball is named on the lawsuit, they actually may work in cahoots with the people who sued to get these third-party sellers to fix. Because I think that's the big issue here. It's not the team. The team's probably holding the money, and if they've already spent it, which I doubt, they have no problems. Like you said, those billionaires have no problems getting the money back to sales that have been done by the team. But these third-party sites, I think, are the huge issue that. Because the other person in the lawsuit, not the Baser woman, but the other person in the lawsuit bought a package, I believe like a 20-game package, which that was purchased directly through the team. Now, his or her, I don't have the name right in front of me here, but his or her claim is that they are actually going broke. They want the money back to be able to live. Whereas the Matthew Eisenman is the partial season plan for 20 Mets games. Now, the Baser family, who paid $926 and also paid for a full trip to New York, may not be hurting as much. I don't know if their vacation budget is a really tight budget. I don't know these people to begin with, but if you're paying $1,000 for 4 seats to the Yankee Stadium, other than being a bucket list kind of trip, you may not be hurting as much for money. Now,
Sure.
Again, I don't know either of their lives, but they have differing reasons for filing this lawsuit. I feel more for the guy who purchased the partial season plan, because as a person who purchases a partial season plan, although it's not going to strap me if I don't have it back immediately, I can understand chunking down $1,730 for a partial season ticket, and that being especially, I assume he lives in New York based on the fact that he bought a partial plan for 20 Mets games. It's not cheap to live there.
Oh yeah, that the cost of living there is going to be brutal. To get to your point about the third-party ticket sellers, I am of the firm belief that the world would be a better place if everybody who works for Ticketmaster killed themselves. So I am firmly,
I don't advocate suicide, but okay.
Firmly in that camp.
So like just climb up to a mountain, grab a knife, and walk off?
Yeah, exactly. Just like all of them, like lemmings, just every one of them back to back.
Oh, I remember that game.
But no, and you're right. I think this thing is, because everything is unprecedented, that it almost makes sense to me that the teams went, we're going to do it this way, like the most team-friendly way first, and then kind of inch and creep along to the point where they could get to something acceptable by the fans. Because at that point, like, you know, it's one of those like negotiating tactics. If you know that you can spend $20,000 on a car, you don't go up to the dealer and say, I want to spend $20,000. You go to the dealer and say, I want to spend 14.
Right.
And then you kind of work your way up to the point
to about 17.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you kind of hope that you get under the 20, but if you get to the 20, then so be it. So you don't start at the most that you're going to offer. So I think that's kind of why these teams and the third-party sellers are doing it. But, you know, for how the third-party sellers get their money back and how they kind of coordinate all this, I have no idea how that's going to all play out in the very end, because it just seems it's a mess. I mean, the whole thing's just an absolute mess. And, you know, I wish the people deciding this good luck, but I don't think these are the last of the lawsuits we're going to see either.
I got to believe that the MLB, right now, who is currently the only major sport on this list, is going to actually aid the I think they're going to come off financially scot-free. I think the decision is going to be made that Ticketmaster, StubHub, Live Nation, whatever, are going to be taking a bath on this one. Now, in their defense, they didn't predict a pandemic either when they sold the tickets. I mean, they have a job. They have a job to sell tickets, whether we agree or disagree with the way they do it. They're in business to sell entertainment tickets.
Sure. And
just like everybody else, we all, for the most part, didn't predict a pandemic. So while they're, I guess, in the same boat we are from a more macro standpoint, they, I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not trying to defend them, but I'm trying to find a spot where they, you know, their arguments can hold water. I mean, they didn't predict this. I don't know if they did anything wrong. And I don't know if they have an ability to go back to the person. I mean, the guy who paid $1,730 for his partial plan, he probably went through the team. He should have no issue.
Yeah.
The MLB wants to resolve that for all the bad publicity they could face. But the woman who paid $1,000 on a third-party site for 4 Red Sox Yankees tickets, I feel like empathy for her, but empathy for the people who, you know, are organizing Ticketmaster, that, you know, they still got to pay employees. They still got to pay a lot of, you know, advertising and everything like that. They still got a business to run, and they need the money too. I don't know. I don't have a strong argument for them, but I think there is one there, and I'm sure an attorney would be able to find that.
Oh yeah, and you know, they're going to go through terms of service and say that when the person bought these tickets, they agreed to, you know, because they didn't have a JD and LLM and SJD degrees, they didn't notice that in, you know, subsection 4 of paragraph 75 on page 1232 of the.
Well, those exist because of situations like this,
right? And that, you know, but the problem is,
can I tell you a secret? There is a rule in our handbook of the company that I work for that says no motorcycles on the casino floor. Do you think they just thought that up? Something had to have happened.
Yeah, well,
That's why.
probably
That's
true.
why these bylaws are like this thick.
The problem is, and not that I'm trying to become Ben Wyatt, but I will quote Ben Wyatt to say we shouldn't need an advanced law degree in order to protect ourselves.
But
Like,
do you generally only need a fundamental understanding of the English language if you decide to read it? Because I've read those before. They're not written in freaking Old English.
no, but they are written in legalese in ways that they want to try to confuse the layman and the people that don't necessarily do this shit for a living.
Correct. And usually buying tickets, for the most part, is an impulse buy. You're not going to be like, oh, cool, Red Sox Yankees, 4 tickets, $1,000, cool. Oh, wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there's a chance I might not get my refund for these tickets. You know, I mean, nobody thinks that way. And I get that. And obviously they prey on that. But again, this is a situation where if this was a rained out game, just a standard rain out, I could see the issue. But this is an unprecedented pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have had the issue of going to, like, traveling to see a baseball game and having it rained out and then having to try to go through. Well, fortunately, I went through the team to get the tickets. It wasn't through a third-party seller. But, it was one of those situations where it took a while. Like, it took some prodding, it took some fighting, and, basically say, because the game was in Tokyo. So I basically had to, like, through a friend of mine who spoke Japanese, say, look, the game got rained out. I live in Las Vegas. I can't just fly to Tokyo on a fucking whim to see a random Tokyo Swallow. Or no, it was the
Yomiuri Giants?
no, it was the Tokyo Marines, maybe? Hang on.
Is that
Mariners.
Yeah, we got one of those in Seattle, dude.
Yeah, no, Tokyo has like 6 teams. I forget what they are, but
And they play in a dome now. So when did you go that you got rained out?
oh, that was the Tokyo Giants play in the dome. This is the Chiba Lot Marines, I think. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Chiba Lot Marines, who play in Tokyo, but it's a whatever. It doesn't.
It's
matter.
not that important.
Yeah. So, but they do play in Tokyo. I know, or one of those. The team they were playing against somebody that plays in Tokyo. Anyway, there's a bunch of teams in Tokyo.
I believe you.
They are outdoor stadiums, and it was able to get rained out. But it was just one of those things where we kept having to go to the team and say, we don't live here. Just please give us some money. Please give us some money. Please. And an event like months later, we finally got refunded for it.
Yeah, and I mean, usually tickets from people coming from out of town for a random game are not that common.
Yeah.
At least from the team. It's not that common that out-of-towners. And I mean, if you do, then usually...
Well, and for the team that's hosting the game, if somebody's coming from out of town, they're most likely a fan of the opposing team. So,
right. So fuck them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they could very well just say, yeah, screw them. You're not going to get your money back because you're a Red Sox fan and this is Yankee Stadium. So they're going to make them...
And you're never going to support our team, so why do we care about you in the PR world?
Yeah, exactly.
I just think I see a scenario here where, although being named on the suit, the MLB helps these people, because if this comes down that the ruling comes down that third-party sites are now going to be responsible, I think you're going to see a huge influx of people going to get refunds.
Oh, of course.
Or going to attempt to get it from Ticketmaster. I mean, the question is, what does the MLB do and what do these teams do? Because they have the ability to refund, and they're still selling tickets.
They are. And, like, I went on the website of one of the hotel casinos here in Vegas today.
They're booking rooms.
And you could book a room for next weekend, even though it's
May 1st, I think, right?
Clear. The one that I looked at said April 28th. Like, why? Like, you're clearly not going to be open by then. But
well, that's the thing. If you book through the hotel or through the company, it's a lot easier to get your refund than if you book through Travelocity or Expedia.
True. And
I hope. I don't know. I have no intentions on book. Trust me, I have no intentions on booking any vacations any recently, but Norwegian Cruise Line is making it real tempting.
I keep hearing that prices of Vegas, like, apparently there were flights from Boston to Vegas, like, now for like $30.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that, but I mean there are flights I looked at maybe going to Florida to see my family for a little bit in May, and I think I found a round trip flight for like $160.
Not bad.
Exactly. It usually costs $3 to $350 to go there and back, but I'll take half off.
Yeah.
Put on a mask and some gloves and maybe a hazmat suit and fly over.
Well, and the crazy thing about this too that we haven't really talked about is that, remember, each of these states has different stay-at-home orders. They have different governors, different priorities, different levels of the coronavirus and everything else. So,
but do those matter to the fact that the games aren't being played at all? I mean,
not that they're maybe not being played at all, but like let's say this person who's traveling to go see this Yankees game, let's say New York lifts their stay-at-home order, but this person's from Vermont and Vermont doesn't.
I
so
see.
All of a sudden the game is being played and they cannot go because of the stay-at-home order in their state. Does that affect things in the legal system?
Well,
which I have to imagine it does.
I don't know if it does, because I think once the game's now being announced for the date you bought tickets on, because I've bought tickets and all of a sudden something has come up and I'm like, crap, I can't go. I got to resell them. And I've taken losses on tickets before.
Yeah, but in situations like that, that was because something came up in your personal life. It's not like the governor and the National Guard saying, stay in your fucking house.
Like, do we have any states that are literally stay in your fucking house? I'm curious. I'm not being sarcastic.
Michigan is getting to that point, I think.
Because I know here, I mean, I'll be the first to admit I've traveled across state lines during this stay-at-home order at this point, and I got no grief. Yeah,
and I think very few states are actually doing a lot about it. Like, they're going to give you the side eye and say, what are you doing? And, every time, like, you leave your house for a day, that extends this by a week and shit like that. But I think that the certain, like, Michigan's getting real bad. There was a guy who owned 2 houses in different parts of Michigan, tried to drive from one to the other and got arrested.
Well, he didn't get arrested for being out. He had to have gotten arrested for something else.
Yeah, well, I think I think he had an attitude about it, but even still, the governor has said, stay in your home unless absolutely necessary, blah, blah, blah. Traveling from one of your properties to another one of your properties has been officially made illegal by the state of Michigan.
Boy, that's a whole nother political podcast.
Yeah, that's something that we probably don't need to dive into here, but it is something that's going on, and that's it's a different world out there right now.
It is, most definitely. So, how do you see this going down? Like I said, I think the verdict that comes down is that these third-party sites, with all the fees they charge, and I don't know if a judge can take that into account, but I think these third-party sites are going to get slapped on the ass here.
I think they're going to get hit a little bit, but I think what it's going to come down to is basically a bullshit apology and like a $25 credit to like an upcoming AAA baseball game for everybody that's ever used the site in the last 6 months or whatever. Like, it's not, they're going to get hit a little bit, but I don't think it's going to have the impact that they necessarily, or that it's not going to break the bank. It's not going to change the way teams do ticketing. It's not going to do anything except Ticketmaster is going to have to give out some coupons. Like,
right. I mean, the teams don't. Some teams put their stuff on third party, but not a lot, right?
I don't think anybody puts them on third. Well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe some teams put them on third party to begin with, but I know that a lot of them have like, the deals that like this is the official reseller of.
Right. I know VGK is AXS? Yeah,
AXS.
And that's the thing. I don't know how the contracts all work, but like I've heard that if you're not posting on AXS and you're posting on Facebook or whatever, you can have your tickets revoked. I'm sure there's some kind of clause in there, but I mean, if that's the case, then they're being in cahoots with the third party just makes them just as grimy, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's not ideal for the people that are buying tickets, but this is the world we live in.
Yeah, I sit on the fence. I see both sides. Ultimately, I think the plaintiffs will probably get their money taken care of. And you're right, something minute and minuscule just to say, pat other people on the head and make them go away. Yeah. I'm interested. I'm curious to stay with this one. We may talk about this in another podcast if there's developments in it. So
No, definitely, and I'll actually pay attention to it and see what I can find. And obviously, I'm married to an attorney, so I'd be curious to hear.
I was thinking maybe we can get her audio opinion unless she wants to be on the video part of the podcast.
Yeah, we'll see. I got plenty of room now in my office. Look.
Yeah, you can get a co-host in there.
Look at all this room. Look at all this room.
Look at all this room. Bang.
I forgot.
Uh-oh. Mega Desk needs to be mega or
Ultra Desk.
Ultra Desk. You need to watch The Office and watch the Mega Desk YouTube.
Yeah, I finally watched The Office. I don't know if I told you, but I did finally sit down. The wife and I binged it, I don't know, probably 6 months to a year ago at this point. And I did quite enjoy it, and I do remember Megadesk. But
it's a great show.
This is, maybe I should start calling this Super Desk, and then I can work my way up to Megadesk and then Ultra Desk eventually.
There you go. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. We are the Vegas Squares. We appreciate you listening. Let's thank the sponsors, 12-Ounce Sports Radio, where we air whenever we put on Dribble, basically.
A lot more recently than we have in the past.
Well, we got time now, but...
well, you have time.
You got time after, 6 o'clock.
Fair.
I mean, thanks for brushing your hair for the podcast.
Hey, no problem. Dude, it's getting bad. Look at this.
Yeah. I really think if you tried to audition, you might give Gritty a run for his money for Philly mascot. So,
about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I made a promise to the wife that if we were still in quarantine in another month and a half, I forget what it was, that she was going to be able to braid my beard. And we have also talked about doing bets around the house, and loser would have to dye their hair. So,
dye the hair I'm okay with, but if you start looking like a Jamaican redhead down here.
Yeah. Get a nice Duck Dynasty split down the middle going, do something funky with this. I don't know.
If I knew how to work Zoom, I would turn your video on. We are also sponsored by Seat Giant, promo code 12-ounce. But Seat Giant, that's another third.
Oh, shit. I completely forgot that we have one of these third-party sellers.
Yeah, but they're not named in the lawsuit, and so far I haven't heard any issues with them. I just thought about that right as I was reading the promo.
Oh no!
All right, well.
What did we do?
Let me preface this. We are sponsored by Seat Giant, promo code 12-ounce sports for your discounted sporting events, concert, and theater tickets. But do not buy right now. Episode 168, we won't be sponsored by Seat Giant anymore.
No, we will not.
It's all good. What are they going to do? They don't pay us anyways.
That's fair.
They give us promo code kickbacks. So yeah, that's about it, man. I don't really know how to end the show now without that.
Yeah, let's
just shut up before they come down on us.
Yeah, let's. I don't know if I can swing this around enough. Look, Overwatch League on YouTube again. I'm watching highlights.
Oh my goodness, cool! I guess. I mean, if it's your thing, it seems pretty sweet. I watched the Rocket League.
Oh, Rocket League's fun. I haven't actually played the game, but the highlights I've seen look pretty fun.
It looks cool. So maybe we'll have to just live stream a Rocket League match, and you can tell me what the hell's going on or something else. So.
Yeah, well, if you want, we can do even something more basic like Counter-Strike or something. We'll just fuck around and play against each other.
Fair enough.
Or even stream a home game on Poker Stars for fake money. Just set up a home game tournament.
Heads up match between me and you.
Yeah, or even we'll invite the tokens. We can get a couple other people in, get a single table private tournament going just between us. Go on Zoom and talk shit while we're taking each other's fake money chips.
Well, if you know how to stream all that, I will leave that up to you because this is about the wealth of my computer knowledge right here.
We get two people. Anything more than that, and Aaron needs a data dictionary.
Hey, I got the third one, but I mean, it would be interesting. It'd be fun to do. So we'll have to look into that. So,
all right.
Since we're not going to be sponsored by SeatGen anymore, maybe we'll see if we can get Poker Stars to come in and sponsor.
They sponsor everything else. Why not?
Or WSOP.com.
Yeah.
All right. For Spike, I am Aaron. I almost said I am Token Tony. Dude, I'm so
wish.
I'm all over I wish, yeah. For Spike, I am Aaron. We appreciate you tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.